now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. In the wake of the Orlando shooting, the investigation into the shooter's true motives continues, with the Justice Department this week taking the odd position of calling it both an act of terror and a hate crime. Does it matter? And how should the West respond to attacks like this one? My next guest is an internationally known expert on national security and counterterrorism. He's the distinguished chair of military theory at the Marine Corps University and author of the new book, Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War. Please welcome to the program, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you, Raymond.
Now, I want to play something for you. This is Loretta Lynch, Attorney General, on Face the Nation. Now, she's talking here about the focus of this investigation and that it's on the Orlando shooter, Omar Maten's true motivations. Listen to this.
We know that he apparently had some concerns or issues with the LGBT community. As I mentioned before, this is a community that is often targeted by acts of hate, and so we're very concerned about that issue as well. It was also Latin night.
Does it matter that it was Latin night, and is this the right emphasis?
To quote a famous science fiction film, the Attorney General is trying the old, "these are not the droids you're looking for" ploy. It's what we called in the Cold War maskirovka. It is diversion. It is talking about anything but the truth of why this man slaughtered 49 Americans. It has nothing to do with ethnic minorities or sexual preference or some kind of internal conflict with his own sexual identity. The man called up the 911 dispatcher as he was dispatching those people and said, "I am doing this for Islam, for the Islamic State." What more explanation do we need, Raymond?
Yeah, well, he called himself an Islamic soldier. He made the call in Arabic, which is not, he's Pakistani. That's not the tongue.
Afghan.
Afghan. But that's not the tongue of his people.
No, and not only that, he's saying Allahu Akbar. We know the witnesses heard him shout, "Allah is the greatest," in Arabic. He clearly used that phrase with the dispatcher, but even when the DOJ is caught red-handed in this crazy redaction, this Orwellian redaction, when they put the lines back in, they still refuse to use the Arabic and use Allah, and they say God. There is no end, no border to this fantasy land that they're trying to generate.
Well, Loretta Lynch spoke about the redaction. Initially, they redacted the transcript of the calls to the between the Orlando shooter and the police. They later decided to restore them. But listen to this explanation of why they redacted a part of that call.
We'll be releasing a partial transcript of the calls between the killer and the hostage negotiators so that people can, in fact, see the type of interaction that was had there. I say partial because we're not going to be, for example, broadcasting his pledges of allegiance.
Loretta Lynch's argument, the administration's position, is they don't want to be used as propaganda tools for ISIS. What's wrong with that?
We don't do that with real hate crimes, do we? I don't remember redactions of Christian extremists or people who are attacking anybody, whether it's the Family Research Council or somebody else. Why are we only doing it in this case, Raymond? Is that strange? It's strange to me. There seems to be a hidden agenda. And we're not empowering the bad guys or doing anything by talking about them as they talk about themselves. It's called reality.
And the failure to identify a religious motivation in your mind indicates what? It's clearly a failure, you believe, in the investigation.
It's a perpetuation of what we've seen for the last 7.5 years, that my wife and I and a few others have been trying to call out from inside the government maelstrom, which is there has been a systematic attempt to white out why terrorists do what they do. It cannot be about religion. It cannot be about jihadism. It has to be something else. We've heard the deputy secretary, the deputy spokeswoman for the Secretary of State say on national television, "We will be safe, Raymond. There will be no more 9/11s if we have jobs for jihadis." It's just about, did you know it's all about economics?
No, they're acting out because they have nowhere else to go. So
other unemployed people do this all the time, don't they? They mow down people in nightclubs. I mean, this is the narrative. It's like Voldemort. You dare not speak his name, right? Islamic terrorism. You can't say it. Why? We didn't do that during World War II with fascism or Nazism. We didn't do it during the Cold War with communism. Why now?
Yeah. Well, here's my bigger question. You were involved in the Tsarnaev trial.
Yes.
You had brothers there that blew up people at a marathon. Why didn't we have navel-gazing and an in-depth investigation of perhaps the Tsarnaev brothers really hated joggers or long-distance runners or women in Nike shorts or I don't know what? It seems we're focusing on minutia and missing the connective tissue between these so-called random events or domestic terror events.
Exactly. So Raymond, I like to use a phrase from a friend of mine, Tom Jocelyn, who used this in Testimony on the Hill. The narrative of the administration is a deliberate attempt to make the U.S. public disconnect the dots. This idea of lone wolves, this is absurd. There is a connective tissue, as you say, between 9/11, Fort Hood, the Boston bombing, San Bernardino, and Orlando. The connective tissue is the ideology of jihad.
Wow. I want to play, you mentioned Capitol Hill testimony.
Yes.
This, from Tuesday, is the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. They held a hearing to discuss ISIS ideology and its relation to the so-called lone wolf attackers. Now, this is Tarek El-Gawari. He is the director of the Religious Studies program at the World Organization for Resource Development and Education. He testified, suggesting that ISIS has nothing to do with religion and Islam. Watch.
Extremist groups like ISIL have no interpretation whatsoever, nor do they have a fundamental understanding of Islam. They are unlettered warmongers who have, in essence, created a parallel religion. Yet this parallel religion that they call to is no more Islamic than a pool with one lemon squeezed in it is lemonade.
You buy that?
No, because I've read the Quran. This individual should read chapter 9, verse 29. He should read chapter 9, verse 5, that says, when the holy months are past, hunt down and besiege the infidel with every stratagem of war, and if they do not convert, kill them. Now, that's actually meant to be the word of God from the Quran. Has he read it? Has this individual read that? That's an exhortation from the Creator.
Well, this is one of the things you point out in your book, Defeating Jihad. There are texts from generals with explicit instruction, particularly to those who live in non-Muslim societies. Tell us a bit about that. What insight are we missing here? What is the missing piece for Americans and Europeans looking in to understand about the ideology that drives these people to act out even against their own neighbors?
Right. So if poverty or lack of education were the root cause of terrorism, then half of India would be terrorists. They're not. So what's missing?
Right.
The catalyst, the ideology, whether you're a Marxist, whether you're a fascist, a member of the KKK, or a jihadi. So in this case, we must understand the ideology. And my book is an attempt to do what we call enemy threat doctrine analysis. You have to look at the sources of the strategy. And there are some key Clausewitzes, Napoleons, if you will, of jihad. And I list them and I go through their main writings. And these are documents that we have found on high-value targets everywhere, in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, and, as somebody who worked on the Boston bombing trial, on the hard drive of the younger brother. Wow. 2,000 pages of jihadi documents. This is not crazy people. These are individuals that have a plan. It's been laid down for the last 70 years, worked out by strategists, and they are following it. And ISIS aren't crazy people. They have a plan, and they've reestablished the caliphate.
What is the answer here? You suggest counter-propaganda. How do you do that?
Right. So the answer is twofold. Once we get politics and political correctness out of the threat assessment, we have to empower our Sunni Muslim allies. They must be the face of this war. The people who are dying the most. I mean, they will kill Christians, Yazidis, but the majority of the victims are actually Sunni Muslims. And then lastly, the propaganda campaign, delegitimize the brand. The same way we did with communism, delegitimize this brand of global jihadism.
There seems to be a focus on the Hill, Dr. Gorka. And their focus is Guns. Guns are out of control. There are too many guns. That's what's fueling and driving this violence. We just saw a series of gun control measures fail in the Senate on Monday. So rebellious Democrats disrupted the House's legislative work on Wednesday, staging a nearly 26-hour sit-in on the House floor. This is Representative John Lewis of Georgia. Listen.
We have turned deaf ears to the blood of the innocent and the concern of our nation. We are blind to a crisis. Mr. Speaker, where is the heart of this body? Where is our soul? We're calling on the leadership of the House to bring common sense gun control legislation to the House floor.
Now, in the middle of this sit-in, Representative Louis Gohmert of Texas came out, and he confronted these House Democrats, suggesting that radical Islam is what killed these people, not the gun. It was the perpetrator, not the gun itself, that killed them. Look at this. Just watch this.
Radical Islam killed these poor people. No fly, no gun. No fly, no gun. No fly, no gun. No fly, no gun.
You watch this and you think what?
God bless Louis Gohmert. That's what I think. Just one point. Do the Democrats realize that making improvised explosive devices out of pressure cookers is illegal in America? I mean, totally and utterly illegal. Did that stop the Boston bombers? You can ban every gun in America. That will not solve the problem. Jihadis will still come to kill the infidel. This is, again, displacement reaction. It's diversionary. They cannot admit their strategy has failed, and therefore they have to focus on inanimate objects, the NRA and Donald Trump. This is their response.
And yet you even have church leaders coming out, and a lot of them have come out. The bishops have come out and said, time for gun control. It is time for gun control measures. You're a Catholic, you look at that and think what?
Feel-good measures that will make no difference. I understand it. There's a kind of intuitive seductiveness to it because it's easy. Ooh, I can solve this problem by banning an inanimate object. It's the soul. It's the heart of the human. What do they wish to do? Do they wish to destroy us in the name of their God? Because if they do, it doesn't matter what you do with guns. They will come and destroy us. Al-Qaeda has a magazine called Inspire. One of the earliest issues has a giant photograph of a pickup truck that says, use your F-150 to kill the infidel.
Wow.
They'll just use a pickup truck. They'll use a brick. They'll use a knife. It's not the gun.
There was an interfaith iftar on World Refugee Day this week, and Secretary of State John Kerry had this to say about the threat of refugees. There's new focus now on refugees, given these flashpoints of violence we're seeing all over the world. Watch.
There is absolutely no evidence, my friends, zero evidence, that refugees who make it through this arduous process pose any greater threat to our society than the members of any other group. And it is important for people to know that.
Okay. Dr. Gorka, given your experience, what you know about what you're seeing around the world, is that true?
He needs to get off his yacht. The Brussels attackers, the Paris attackers, we know that they used fake, false Syrian passports to claim refugee status to enter Europe. What is this man talking about? ISIS has said in their propaganda statements, we will and we are using the refugee streams to attack the West. It's unconscionable. It's shameful.
Yeah. And there's a letter today. Ted Cruz and Jeff Sessions released this, a report. Among the 580 convicted of terror plots, at least 380 of them were foreign-born. There's also been a surge in cases since 2014, with at least 131 more suspects found. 40 of the people, at least 40 of the people initially admitted into the U.S. as refugees later were convicted or implicated in terror cases, and that's only the backlog.
Right. Your viewers need to be aware. We wrote a report recently, a week before San Bernardino. If you do the numbers, this recent attack in Orlando, this is the 103rd individual in the United States linked to ISIS who has plotted or executed an attack. This isn't an unusual thing. 103. in 2 years. The threat is here, the threat is real. Whatever the Democrats would like to do to wish it away, Americans are in danger, and it will continue.
There is a natural heart that people have for refugees escaping this war-torn disaster in the Middle East, particularly Syria and Iraq. What is your advice? I mean, you can't apply a religious litmus test. Some are saying, you know, we're going to keep all the Muslims out, we're going to keep all this group out. You can't do that. What do you do? What should we be doing as a government? What aren't we doing?
Raymond, my parents were refugees, so this is very close to my heart. They were interrogated for weeks on end to prove their bona fides. When the FBI director says we cannot vet individuals coming from war zones, forget a litmus test. I mean, how many Americans would pass a test for being a Christian? Yeah, it's absurd, okay? So, number one, common sense. Do not admit, for the time being, individuals from active war zones where jihadis are operating who we cannot vet. That's just common sense. We're a Christian nation. Help those who can be helped, but not in a suicide pact. That's all we need to do.
What do you do when you've got an EU, borderless EU, they're streaming through? Germany admitted 1 million refugees last year. Those people are free to wander wherever they'd like in Europe. They've got, presumably, European passports now. How do you keep them out of the United States?
Well, this is a huge problem because I'm not sure they get instantly European citizenship, but they may have passage documents, or UN or EU passage documents. The real problem is the visa waiver program. That is a real Achilles heel. I was a British national. I'm now an American. When I came to America, I just had to fill out a form on the plane and I walked into America. This is a huge problem. Common sense must be applied, and the EU has to wake up to this issue. If you're a bad guy, you will exploit the refugee crisis. It's just common sense.
Dr. Sebastian Gorka, thank you so much for being
so much.
here. Dr. Gorka's new book, Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War, is available now at bookstores everywhere and online. You can also follow Dr. Gorka on his website, thegorkabriefing.com.